What's going on, everybody? Jason here, back in the basement. And today I just wanted to recap my trip from Chicago. My wife and I went to Chicago for a couple of days on business and had a chance to kind of be there and work remotely, and brought some cameras with me to shoot Chicago. I had been to Chicago before, but last time I didn't bring any cameras. I wasn't doing any photography work at the time. So, after years and years later, having a photography career and mindset, I thought, great opportunity to shoot downtown Chicago and kind of capture what it felt like to be there in the environment. And so just want to recap that. So, what did I bring? So, I brought two cameras and I brought a couple of lenses. First camera was my snapshot camera, which is the Ricoh GRD4, an old point and shoot camera. The small sensor version, not the APS-C. This is the last version of their 1/1 7-inch sensor compacts. So this is the GRD4, not the GR, not the GR, the GR2 or GR3. So this is a f1.9 aperture and still has the 28 millimeter equivalent. So pretty good. I like this camera because it's very compact. Like you can see, I'm kind of swallowing it up in my hands. Very compact, great for snapshots when you're just kind of out in the streets in good light. Got some really cool shots with this and really enjoy using it. I've been using this for the last about a month now, maybe a little longer than that. I'm a small sensor kind of guy. I like small sensor compacts because they're usually pretty small, something you can fit in your bag, in your pocket. And when I'm not shooting seriously, whatever that means, I can take this with me and just kind of get something other than what my phone can get. Phones are great and all, but I like buttons. I like to control it manually. And I think this is a good thing to have on you if you can get that. Now, here are some of the downsides of shooting with this camera that I found is shooting in RAW is very slow. So that's the downside of this camera. Other than that, I think it's fantastic. But shooting in RAW just really, the operation is very slow. So from shot to shot, it takes a long time. You really can't get to your next shot fast because it has to process it, and it takes a long time to get to the next one. So I find that that's the same thing with any old compact of this generation, because although this at the time was considered a very ahead of its time kind of compact, because it did shoot RAW and have all these full manual controls and all these dials and buttons, RAW shooting wasn't really a priority as much as a gimmick, maybe a throw-in, the way that some cameras of a certain generation video was kind of just thrown in and really wasn't fully fleshed out. They did this generation of camera, the RAW is just very slow. I have the same issue with the Samsung. I've talked about this camera before. The Samsung EX2F, same thing. Has a 1/1 inch sensor, has very good manual controls, buttons and dials, even has a flip screen. Is very cool camera. But at the time when these were made, they weren't made with RAW shooting in mind. They were made as like, hey, let's just throw it in because we can, but it's not really good, and I think that's an issue. So I treat this camera a lot like a film camera in a way, right? Again, even auto, another downside, auto ISO, not really any good. It only goes to 400, which is good in daylight. But if you step indoors and you need a little push to 800, it won't go past 400. Auto ISO just literally won't go past that. And so I'm kind of stuck, letting it do that. Now, there's another mode. You have to set the auto ISO with a specific ISO in mind, and then it seems to push. So that works okay. but I didn't know that until after I used it. So after I started playing with it, so it can do the job. But I think I really learned to shoot this like a film camera and just lock in my ISO in certain situations. So if I'm outdoors, I'll go from 100 to 400, and if I get into maybe a darker situation, I'll go to 800 and sometimes 16. But I like to be as high as 8. 8 is what I'd be, high as I want to go, and then I'll just pop the flash when I need the flash, right? So especially for people, I want to be about 3.5 feet away, bring the exposure of the flash exposure comp down a bit, and then you just pop the flash, to kind of get some fill. And that should do the job to kind of clean up any noisiness. And then the worst case scenario, shoot it all black and white, rock with the noise to 1600. Who cares, right? Because I'm not shooting this professionally. I'm not trying to go in and really edit them, especially since I'm not going to shoot RAW and they're going to be JPEGs. I want to treat this like a film camera as much as possible and just be very careful about what I'm shooting, really manage that ISO, and really just kind of like get whatever I get, I get. I might touch the JPEGs a tad, but I'm not trying to push it as if I'm shooting an event in a professional situation. I really want to clean it up. I'm really just trying to get snapshots, shoot on the street and really get that. So really enjoy that. So I had this as my kind of daylight walk around primary camera, although I carried both at the same time. The second camera was the Panasonic GX85, micro four thirds, rangefinder style camera. I really, really love this camera. As you know, I'm a Fuji guy, but in the past year or so, I've been experimenting with micro four thirds. And this, after a few other bodies that I toyed with, I really kind of nailed down on this one because of the feature set. It has image stabilization, it's got a viewfinder, it's got a tilt screen, 16 megapixels, has a touchscreen, which I don't really like to use, but it's there if I need it. Has 4K video for some clips, some video, short clips here and there, and obviously interchangeable lenses, and just really good. Just a good size. It's not too big. It's not too small. And then I think it really kind of is as a secondary system to the APS-C Fujis that I have. I think this is the type of body you don't regret owning, because I think it can get into a system. You can get into system wars, I like to say, where you feel like you have too many things. But I think this kind of fits the bill of kind of being right where you need to be. It's not too much, right? You don't got too much here. It's a small body, it doesn't take up a lot, and it fits into a system as a companion. Because what I like to do is shoot this along with my Fujis, when I do some travel stuff. So sometimes I will bring my Fuji as my primary wide angle normal focal lengths for 90% of the shooting, and then I have a telephoto lens, which I'm going to talk about now, the 35 to 100, which is a 7200 equivalent. So instead of having a whole nother telephoto lens for Fuji, which there are plenty out there, you got the 55 to 200, the 100 to 400, the 70 to 300. I just opted to go for a whole nother system with a compact lens and just carry the whole separate camera, because then I don't have to actually change the lenses. I can just pull out this whole camera. And when you really mount it on, it's super small. Not a big lens at all. It's really compact. And then, when I think about the size of this whole camera and lens, being a 7200, this is probably the same size and weight as the Fuji 55 to 200. So it's like I can own a whole nother system and have some flexibility with, a lens package that I don't have access to. Or I could just stay completely into the Fuji and have a bigger lens in the bag that I will actually have to take off of my Fuji and put on when I want to use it. And so I just opted to have a separate system. And so obviously this 7200 came with me. And then my other lenses, I had brought the 12 to 32, which is a very, very compact standard zoom. So 12 to 32, 3.5 to 5.6, and this kind of did some of my daylight shooting when I really wanted to get something, you know, serious, more serious. Because the thing about this camera versus the Ricoh is that just like the Fuji, shooting RAW and JPEG together is not an issue. It operates fast, no issue. Obviously, it's more a modern camera, so that's why. And so that's where when I got a little frustrated, but I wanted to, you know, capture something that was more serious that I may want to edit later, I switched over to this with, you know, the 12 to 32 or the 20 millimeter 1.7, right? So low light, this is my low light lens, and then this would be my daylight lens. So 12 to 32 will handle daylight duties, and then when we got a little darker, nighttime, the 20 millimeter 1.7 kind of took over. So kind of gave me that whole picture. So basically, between these three lenses, I got a 12 to 100, which is equivalent to 24 to 200. And then these two are slower lenses. They're both 3.5 to 5.6. So they're like your, you know, half, you know, 2/3 of your Holy Trinity. And then I got my fast prime right here, which is a 40 millimeter equivalent. So it kind of gave me really good coverage. So I was able to cover a lot of different focal ranges and situations. And I always like to have it just in case. And being the size, and really the reason why I got these three lenses in particular is because they're all very compact. Micro Four Thirds doesn't necessarily have all compact lenses. A lot of them are, but not some aren't. But you have to be careful that you don't undo your own philosophy. So for me, it had to be compact, right? That's a priority for Micro Four Thirds. And I got the flexibility of having a fast prime at 1.7 for being in low light situations. So I wasn't missing anything and everything was covered. And I felt really good about taking this system. So for now, Micro Four Thirds is a hit for me. So other than that, downtown Chicago, very metropolitan, very, you know, city-like. Feels, you know, I'm from the northern New Jersey area, so I'm a hop, skip away from New York City. It feels a lot like New York City. So I was making a joke to my cousin who I met in Chicago, and I was telling him that Chicago is Metropolis. If you're into comic books, Metropolis is where Superman is, and then Gotham City is New York City, and that's Batman's city, right? So I'm near Gotham City, and my cousin's near Metropolis, all right? So only fitting that I'm wearing black. So, yep. So that's it. I'll definitely share some photos, take a look at those, and let me know what you guys think, all right? So, peace.